Hello and welcome back to Media Madness, a show where we expose all the insanity of the corporate press. My name is Rob McGreevy with the Daily Caller. Today, we're going to be taking a look at former CNN White House correspondent / current has-been Jim Acosta and his insane rant about Trump and immigration, in which he takes pot shots at Trump's dead wife. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Capitol. What did you think when you saw the footage of Senator Alex Padilla really manhandled, thrown to the ground, handcuffed for asking a question? I must say, I thought a little bit about another reporter who asked questions and paid a penalty. But in this case, he received violence. He was brutalized. Yeah. What did you think when you saw Senator Alex Padilla the other day?
I have to say, Jen, my blood was boiling after I saw what took place with Senator Padilla. I immediately went on my Substack and spoke with my friend Maria Cardona about this.
Always plug the Substack, Jimmy.
That only happened because Senator Alex Padilla has brown skin and has a Spanish last name, has a Hispanic last name. Would they have thrown Lindsey Graham to the ground? Come on, give me a break. Would they have thrown, Senator Rand Paul to the ground like that?
If Lindsey Graham or Rand Paul approached a federal officer wearing plain clothes, unrecognizable as a senator, yeah, I bet you they would have thrown them to the ground. This is classic race-baiting bullshit. Let's keep going.
Senator Rand Paul to the ground like that? Of course not. And the reason why that happened to Alex Padilla is because of who he is and where he comes from. And, if you talk to friends of Alex Padilla, they will tell you he is the most mild-mannered. He doesn't he's not a showboater. He doesn't do that kind of stuff.
That was literally
but
showboating.
He felt so compelled in that moment to say something to Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, who really has disgraced herself.
Jim Acosta, a guy who pretends to be a journalist, is saying that a politician, a California senator, who's worked his way up to an extremely powerful position, was not showboating when he very publicly screamed at the Secretary of Homeland Security and got cuffed and arrested. A perfect made-for-TV moment. Jim Acosta is saying this was not, he just felt compelled. His moral conviction was so strong that he just had to speak up. This is a politician we're talking about here. People whose entire careers are built around building these made-for-TV moments. Jim Acosta is saying, no, that was genuine. All politicians are liars except for this one guy in this specific case because I said so. Very strange. I think he thinks we're all really stupid to believe that. It gets worse, though.
I mean, let's just be real. She has disgraced herself as the Secretary of Homeland Security. She is going to go down as probably the most disgraceful Homeland Security Secretary in this country's history. And because of the way these mass deportations have been conducted over the first few months of this administration. And for a United States Senator to be treated that way, and I think Alex Padilla said this, if I can be treated this way, that means anybody else can be treated in this way. And it made...
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, Jim. They tried to put a former president in jail just like 2 years ago. So yeah, anybody can be treated that way.
Me think we need and again, if I get the words wrong, forgive me, but I do in my deepest part of my soul believe that we need a civil rights movement of Latinos and Latinas in this country.
More race baiting.
We need a movement. We need a million Latina rally, march.
I mean, what rights does an American citizen that is Latino or Latina not have that the rest of us do? I'd really love for Jim to answer that question. I was at an anti-ICE rally last week in New York, and the majority of the anti-ICE protesters were white. On the other side of the street were pro-NYPD, pro-ICE protesters, many of which, if not the majority of which, were black and Hispanic. No mention of that from Jimmy Boy here.
On the National Mall here in Washington, D.C. I think it is high time for something like that to happen in this country. We need Latino leaders in this country to come together and coalesce. And where is Marco Rubio? My God, he's the Secretary of State. Where is he?
He's at the parade.
He's at the parade, but my God, look at the way that the Trump administration is treating.
I mean, that's so random. Where is Marco Rubio when we're talking about deportations and Department of Homeland Security issues? He's the Secretary of State. He literally has nothing to do with this. Where is Lee Zeldin? Where is Rex Tillerson? Where is Condoleezza Rice? We can just throw out all sort of random names and ask where people that have nothing to do with this situation, where they are. These people, Jen Rubin, I don't even know who that lady in the middle is, Jim Acosta, their product relies on their listener and viewer being fundamentally stupid and needing to outsource their common sense and critical thinking. That's the only way this brand of news content works.
Is treating Cuban refugees.
Yeah.
The United States is turning its back on people fleeing totalitarianism. I can't believe this is the United States of America. It doesn't make any sense to me. And, that is why today is so important, because people bring all of their lived experiences with them. They pour their heart and soul into what took place earlier today. And I'm personally very proud of everybody. And in a world where all we see every day is this negative story or that story,
this is what we got going on,
this is bad, and so on. I think people should take
random white lady in the middle of the broadcast.
Positive feeling. This was a good day for protests in America. Obviously, the situation in Minnesota is totally tragic and heartbreaking and horrible. But the No Kings protests, I think, set a very important marker in this country, and that is peaceful, nonviolent protests can happen in America against this regime, and it can make change. And I think the change that was made today is demonstrating to people is that your voice does matter. You can't just throw in the towel. You can't just say, "Oh, well, he's in there. We're stuck with him for another 3 years. What are we going to do?" No, I think today sent the message that you can do more, and you can do it in a way that makes a big difference.
So, Jim, today is a mosh of, like you said, a lot of different things, from the ICE raids, due process that we're not seeing in some of these cases, profiling, also the fact that this president has just cut across laws. He's doing what he wants. If you had a chance
doing what Americans
to
want,
be back in that briefing room or in the Oval Office, what would you ask Caroline Leavitt or the president?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I asked Caroline Leavitt the other day. I sent her a message over XDM.
Email. Oh, okay.
And I said, not email. I'm going to do that, April. But I did it over DM, and I said, "Can I have an interview with Donald Trump?" And she wrote back and said, "With you?" ? And I said, "Yeah." And I didn't hear back from her. So the offer has been extended.
Wait a minute. This is breaking news. This is breaking news.
I did put that out there.
Breaking news.
It's not breaking news.
They're wimps. They're never going to let me in there. They're never going to give that interview.
That you're not going to get an interview. You need to.
But Donald Trump, let me tell you something. The question I would ask is this.
Before we get to Acosta's big reveal here, I just want to say, DMing Caroline Leavitt on Twitter is not an exclusive insider privilege. Anyone that pays the $8 a month for Twitter Blue can do so. And furthermore, it is not breaking news that Jim Acosta slid into Caroline Leavitt's DMs to ask if he could interview the president. That's, I guess, what qualifies for breaking news at April Ryan's The Griot, but not for most normal Americans.
Why do you hate the Hispanic people of this country? Why do you hate the Latino people of this country? Just tell me. What happened? What happened to you?
Jim Acosta has no idea why he's not getting press access. By the way, Trump, why are you a racist? That's his question to President Trump. Not thousands of questions he could ask him about Iran, about border policy, about the economy. No. Why are you racist? No. Answer the question, Donald Trump. Why are you racist? That's hard-hitting journalism from Jim Acosta. It's a wonder that this guy's not hired by some huge media conglomerate.
What happened to you, Stephen?
You and I know this. You and I covered that first administration. You and I know this. What does 2035 look like? It looks like brown America. He does not like the browning of America. You know why. It's just like when I asked the question, Mr. President,
to support that claim.
I didn't.
But then you know what that means, April.
Now.
But April, you know what that means for a man that likes to have a dictator parade for himself, with the paratroopers jumping out of airplanes, and God bless him. God bless the United States Army.
Nobody calls France's parades dictator parades, by the way. Jim Acosta has never called France's military parade a dictator parade.
Army. My grandfather was in the Army. He's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Wow. Donald Trump likes to hug the flag and say he loves America. But if
a new Jim Acosta hand motion unlocked.
What this means is Donald Trump hates America. He actually hates what America is becoming. And if he hates the fact that we're becoming a more diverse, more loving, more together country, then that, I think, is at the heart of where we are right now.
Go ahead, just right now, pause this video, search No Kings protests on YouTube. Search any protests, anti-ICE protests from the weekend. Tell me if you think that we're becoming a more loving America. Tell me if you think that the left is driving an abundance of love, because I don't.
Heart of where we are right now, and that's what we're up against. We're up against somebody who hates the future of America, and the future of America
More
needs to
Acosta
come to
hand
the
motions.
rescue of America, in my view. And I think that's what we're starting to see right now. The young people of this country get it. They totally get this. They're like, what is wrong with the olds? You know what I mean? Like, why do you have the problems with minorities? Why do you have problems with
Ken
with
Rubin
gays
looks asleep.
and the LGBTQ plus community? Why they don't get it? Those folks, as they get older, they're going to have kids, they're going to have grandkids, and this is just moving in the direction that Donald Trump doesn't like. I'm sorry,
Exactly.
you lost. You may have won this election by a smidge. And
You lost.
and you
I mean,
got
you
back in
won.
the
You're
White
the
House.
president.
Okay.
But you lost.
There you go. But
No, both
he
he
ultimately
and
loses where this is going.
he and Elon both said it was rigged, so the jury's out on that one right now.
That's true. That's true.
Well,
That's true. Where did Trump and Elon say the current election was rigged? I mean, by the way, election denialism is something that would have got you kicked off of YouTube 5 years ago, April. Today, I guess, is no problem because it's denying a Republican a win. But 5 years ago, if you said any election was rigged, goodbye account, goodbye livelihood if you're a creator. Today, it's fine.
Well, Jim, I think what you just said is so important. I spent
Yeah.
40 years of my life in California. And
Thank you for sharing your lived
California
experience, Jen.
kind of epitomizes America. It's always
It does.
been this very diverse, very progressive place. It was founded by Hispanics. It was founded by people who
Right.
came from what is now across the border.
Yeah.
And so no wonder he hates Los Angeles and California.
Once again, no
It's
evidence to
the
support
vision of
these
America
claims
that
of
he
hatred.
can't accept.
I got a question though. Where are the ICE raids at the Trump properties?
Mar- yes, and
Can somebody call ICE on the Trump golf course in Virginia? You're
Yes,
telling me
by
there's
the way.
nobody in there that is undocumented or has some kind of squirreliness going on with their paperwork? Give me a break. Hey, how
Exactly.
many immigrants has he married? He's got one buried at his golf course in New Jersey.
Oh
Isn't
my
she
God.
buried by the first hole or the second tee or something like that?
the first hole, yeah, it's the first hole.
Immigrants
is why-
I mean, really, Jim? Oh, some immigrants buried by the first hole of his golf course. That is the rhetoric from the loving, tolerant left. Not even 2 minutes ago, Jim Acosta was talking about this becoming a more loving country and that Trump hated that. 2 minutes later, his ex-wife is buried by some hole in his golf course. That is his definition of a more loving country. The callousness. And by the way, I love a good joke. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me when people make off-color blue jokes. But you can't do that and then go talk down to people like Jim Acosta and the rest of his left parade will say, we have the moral certitude. We are the better people. You on the right, you Republicans, you're bad people because you employ free speech and you make these jokes and you say this, but I'm allowed to say it because it's Trump. Oh yeah, Trump's ex-wife, she's buried. Like, that's the level of hypocrisy that people like Jim Acosta, Jen Rubin, April Ryan, laughing. April Ryan covered her mouth like, I can't believe you just said that, but she laughed. Big smile on her face. This is what the left has got. A triple box of aging, deluded liars. I mean, to Jen Rubin's credit, I don't actually think she told a lie in this particular segment. The other two just baselessly claiming that Trump hates immigrants, hates Hispanics, hates black people, claimed voter fraud in the last election. Just blatantly making shit up and calling themselves journalists after. Jim Acosta will still call himself a journalist. He probably still has that in his Twitter bio. And he's saying, Trump, why are you racist? Trump, why are you racist? Why can't I get a question, Caroline Leavitt? I just want to ask the president why he's racist. It's a wonder. I'm shocked that Jim Acosta does not have a job on cable news today. It's unbelievable. That's what we got today, folks. Listen, if you enjoyed this, let me tell you something. It takes a little bit out of my soul to have to watch the Jim Acostas and the Jen Rubins of the world every day. But I do it for you people because they are lying on a daily basis. And we're here to try to inject some truth into the media atmosphere. If you appreciate this, please throw us a like on this video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends. If you're seeing this on Twitter, like it, repost it, comment, engage. Please help us grow the channel. Combat these lunatics spouting falsehoods, bile, and hatred into the atmosphere. We'll see you next time.